Now one thing which was pending was to see how does the Java code of all those common operations looks like. So in this video, let's see the Java code for all those common operations. Let's get started. So before diving into the code, there are few things that I want to talk about. So the first thing is that all of this code will be available in resource section. So please do check the resource section to get an access to all of these codes. Number 2 is we should always make sure that the edge case or the negative cases are always dealt correctly in the code. So there can be a chance that in all of these codes the corner cases may or may not have been dealt, and the reason is we did not unnecessarily wanted to make the code lengthy for the beginners. So in case if you find any of the code missing some of the corner cases, please consider it as your homework to add those cases. And last but not the least, I have edited all those part of the video where I am typing the code. So you will always find all the codes in a ready-made style. This is again done to reduce the size of the video. Okay, so these were the 3 points that I wanted to make. Now let's start seeing the code of it. So we have two classes over here, single dimension array main and single dimension array. Now what is the use of these two classes is, in single dimension array we are going to write all the methods or the common operations that can be performed on an array. Whereas in single dimension array main we are going to call all those operations. So let's see how we can do that. So we have an array reference here called ARR, which is the name of the array. So right now it is initialized to null. That means there is no array right now. Now, so the first operation was to create a blank array. So how we can do that is very simple. So we have to create a constructor which is going to take the size of an array from user and create a blank array with some default values. So we have created a constructor called single dimension array. It takes size of an array from user as an argument, and then it creates a new integer array of that size. Once that is created, we assign the reference of that newly created array to ARR reference. So till now we have created our array. Now the next thing to do is to initialize it with some default value. So we have created a for loop and it starts from the 0 cell, goes till the last cell of the array, and in every cell it starts putting a value integer dot minimum value, which is nothing but minus 2 to the power 31. So now let's quickly test this constructor. So in the main function we are creating a object of single dimension array class and we are passing a value 10. What that means is we want an array which is of 10 cells. So the next function is traverse array. Now what that does is it traverses the entire array starting from first cell to the last cell in that array. So for that we have created a loop starting from 0 to the last cell, and all it does is it prints the content of that cell. Now we have put it into try catch block, and the reason is that in case if by mistake we give a reference variable which is not pointing to any array, in that case the program will not stop abruptly. Instead it will give a proper message saying array no longer exists. Now let's quickly run this method. So we have called this method traverse array on the object SDA. So let's see what it shows when it is run. So as we can see that we have 10 values over here, and each of the cell is having a value which is integer dot minimum value, that is minus 2 to the power 31. Now let's go to the next method, which is insertion in an array. So the name of the method is insert, and it takes the location where we need to insert a value, and the second argument is the value that needs to be inserted. Now the if condition says is if the location where we want to insert a value is having integer dot minimum value, that means if it is blank, in that case we will update the cell of that array and insert the value that we want to, and then we print that it is successfully inserted. Else, now when will the system go in else? When it finds that there is some value already in that cell. In that case we say cell is already occupied by another value. Now again we have put this entire thing into a try catch block, and the reason is if user by mistake gives a location which is negative or more than the size of the array. In that case, instead of the program getting stopped abruptly, we should be able to catch the exception and throw a proper error message. So in that case we say invalid index to access array. So now let's quickly test this method. So we are calling the insert method on the object SDA. So as you can see that we have started inserting value from cell number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in this case we see that we wanted to insert a value once again into cell number 1, which is already occupied by value 10. So what happens in that case? We'll see. Also one more interesting case is this one, where we are trying to insert a value in cell number 12. But remember that the size of the array is only 10. So in that case we should be getting a proper error message. So let's see how it looks. So we see that system gives a message saying inserted successfully at location 0 and the value is 0. Similarly, inserted 10 at location 1. At 2 we have 20 and so on. Now the interesting case is over here. So we tried to insert a value 100 into location 1, and since location 1 already had a value, we threw an error saying that this is already occupied cell. Now there is no hard and fast rule that if any array cell is already occupied by their value, we cannot update its value with some any other value. But I have considered that thing to make the things simple. Now the last statement is also very interesting, which is invalid index to access array, and this came from when we wanted to insert value 120 into cell number 12, and because the cell number 12 does not exist, it gives us an error message. Okay, now let's see what are the other operations that can be performed. So accessing an array is another method that can be performed on an array, whereby we pass the cell number which needs to be accessed. So in this case all it does is it does a print of the cell number of that array, and again we put it into try catch block because we don't want the code to stop abruptly. Now let's quickly test this method. So we are calling this method on object SDA and the value being passed is 1. So it needs to print cell number 1. So as we can see, it starts printing accessing cell number 1, which is value 10. Fine. Now let's see what other methods we have. So the next method is search in an array, whereby we give a value that needs to be searched in an array. If the value is existing in the array, then we return the cell number of that place. Else we give an error saying that the value is not existing in the array. So for that we have taken a for loop which starts from 0, goes on till end of the array, and all the time it does is it starts comparing if the value in that cell is equal to value that we want to search. If the answer is yes, then we say value found and we print the index number where the value was found. else we say the value is not found in the array. So now let's quickly test this method. So we have called this method on STA object, and the value that we are trying to find is 30. And once again we call this method on STA object, and this time we want to find out if value 400 is there in the array or not. Now let's run it. So we see that searching 30 in the array and value is found, and the index of 30 is 3. Where is this coming from? This is coming from here. Now in the second case we were trying to find 400, and we say 400 is not found. So as you can see, in this case we have never inserted 400, hence the system never finds 400 and gives that message. Now let's see the last method. So the last method is delete value from the array. Now in this method we give a cell number, and that cell number's value is deleted by this method. So for that, all the system does is goes to the array, that cell number, and it inserts a minimum value over there, which basically indicates that it is blank and it can be used to insert any other value. And of course we again put it under try catch block because we don't want our code to stop abruptly. Now let's quickly test this method. So we have called this traverse array method on STA object, and we are printing the value of this array before deleting and after deleting, so that we can identify the difference easily. Now let's run this code. So we can see that it says deleting value from cell number 3 of an array. Before deleting, this was the content of array 0, 10, 20, 30 and so on. After deleting, 0, 10, 20 and 30 has been removed, and instead of that the minimum value, which was minus 2 to the power 31, has been inserted. Rest of the array remains as is. So this is all about all the common operations that we have learnt till now and how it can be implemented in Java. Now that you have understood how to write the Java code for all this method, so please don't copy this code and run it in your system. Please try to write the same thing again from scratch on your own. And of course, if you get stuck, you can always refer to this code, but please try to write on your own. That is the way that you will learn how to convert a given algorithm into a running code. So I will paste this code in the resource section so that you all have an access to this code. Please feel free to get back to me in case if you have any problems or doubt or anything. So with this we end this video. In the next video we will see what is two-dimensional array and how is it different from one-dimensional array. So that's all for this video. Thanks for your time. See you in the next video.